me, sir.
Welcome back to Stephen King Month. Last time we were here, we checked into the Dolphin Hotel and survived 1408, a room that has a mental capacity to make the more insane even more insane. But today, unfortunately, we're heading back to prison, but this time around, not as bad as you might think. Only this time, it's kind of our last walk. Although for me, I still gotta review the rest of the month, and Stephen King's It is on the way, so I won't be dying today. So, let's take a look at The Green Mile. Welcome back again, Frank Darabont. Yes, once again, Frank Darabont has written and directed another Stephen King film. The Green Mile was released back in December of 1999 and stars Tom Hanks as Paul Edgecombe, as he is recounting his days as a death row police guard as he is maintaining Cell Block E of the Louisiana State Prison. It is here that we also get introduced to Michael Clarke Duncan, playing John Carvin, who gets accused of two little girls. He also has the apparent magic abilities to fix any problem by a ways of miracles. The one thing about this film that I could say from the start is that this film is long. If you're not into long, drawn-out films, then this is not for you. This is a very slow-burning film with some very enjoyable elements. The acting, once again, is really, really good. The writing, same thing. Character-centric and very well thought out. Frank Darabont, as I said before in the Shawshank Redemption review, knows a thing or two about character writing. And it's through this film that it's arguably his best work ever. Yes, I am saying it right here. The Green Mile is the best Frank Darabont movie of all time. There's many reasons, but I'll get into them in a second. There's a lot of very symbolic imagery in this film. In the start of the film, we see an older version of Paul Edgecombe as he is walking down a green mile of his own. Well, almost literally. The Green Mile in this movie is essentially our last moments of life. It's the time that we have before we have our final goodbyes. It's essentially a really good plot device, or a really good metaphor for this movie. Pretty much most of the characters in this movie face their own sort of Green Miles, and it's recounted at the end as the Green Mile is, well, it can happen at any time, and you don't really know about it, and it's really sad. And it's really apparent in this movie that they make sure to get you to care about most of these characters before they die. There's a sense of injustice about their deaths, and especially with Michael Clarke Duncan's performance as John. He's really good in this movie, and it's one of my favorite performances from him. He has a really good line about being tired of how the world is becoming so ugly to each other, that it's really hurting him mentally and emotionally, and it affects his overall healing powers as well. It's so interesting. It's a really nice piece of dialogue that I think should ring through in our own political climate today. What's also really interesting about this film is its historical context. 1999 was a year that had seen the most death penalty executions since the 1970s. 98 people were killed in 1999. 94 of them were through lethal injection, 3 through electric shock therapy, and 1 through gas chamber. It had seen a lot of death in the death row of that year. It was also the same year that Democratic Senator Russell Feingold from Wisconsin introduced the Federal Death Penalty Abolition Act of 1999, almost about 1 month prior to this film's release. And it's fairly interesting to see it. Whether or not you agree with the death penalty is up to you, the viewer, but it really also shows the brutality of what death can bring when we force our own people into a death chair, regardless if they are guilty or not guilty. It's a truly inspiring piece of work that shows the humanity of its prisoners. in this one prison. And I really appreciate this movie for showing it. Because prior to any of this, the collective consciousness of people on death row is that all of them deserve to die. But what this film does is they really humanize the inmates. And while I'm not saying that the death penalty should be abolished, throughout the past 20 years, there's been multiple acts that had been introduced into the Senate, and they've never passed. In fact, the most recent one was in 2013, and it still hasn't passed. And again, I want to stress that this video is not to engage in the topic of the death penalty, but I am just bringing up the point that this film has a historical connotation with the events of that same year. And that's just all I want to say. It's a really interesting connection. There's a lot of film analysis papers online and whatnot that really go deeper into the historical context and hidden meanings and metaphors about the film. And I'm not going to sit here and try to talk about each one, so I'll just leave you to actually watch it. Now, let's get back to the actual movie. Is it great? To me, this is the best adaptation ever. It's emotionally gripping, its cinematography is great, the set design is gorgeous, the acting is beautiful. I never thought in a million years I would care about a guy who loved a mouse so much. But his death was the most traumatic one I've seen, up until Michael Clarke Duncan's death in a film. And it's sad. Every single facet about this film is sad. The way the characters interact with other characters, the way the characters act towards each other, is just sad, and in a very good way. It makes us feel sympathetic towards these prisoners who many people thought were just kind of, there because they're guilty of a crime that either they didn't commit and they were actually innocent, or they were rightfully there but they still act human. And it reminds most of the viewers that even though we have some very bad people in the world, we should treat them with a little bit more respect than we should. I mean, when you really think about it, if you're on death row, wouldn't you want to be treated with some dignity before you die? I mean, it's one of those things that is very, very puzzling in life. Should we give humanity to people that we deem terrible? This movie really brings up that question, and it doesn't really leave you with a set answer either. It's left there to really allow you to answer that question for yourself. So yeah, with excellent writing, great cinematography, great acting from Tom Hanks as ever. I mean, he gives a very charismatic performance in this movie. But the heart of the movie, once again, is Michael Clarke Duncan as John. He's a great character, and I really enjoyed his performance. And his death is one of the most injustful things I've ever seen in a film. There's actually a really effective video that I will link down in the description below on how to make a very effective death scene. And he's right. He's essentially right about this scene. And I would highly recommend that you watch the video that I'm linking into the description below. So, with that being said, I'm going to give The Green Mile an A+. It is truly a masterwork of humanization, character writing. Pretty much everything about this film is really great, and there's a lot to analyze in the film. If you are a film student, or you want to study film reviews, or get into the academics of actually writing about movies, this would be a good start to actually start from. It's a great film. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of The Green Mile. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at some very ferocious animals, a vampire, a drunken mother, the dead zone, and a couple other things here and there, but we'll get to them. Next week's going to be a bit of a rush of Stephen King reviews, and I hope that the week of the new Stephen King's It movie, I will have my review out for Stephen King's It as well. So, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.